Good morning, everyone, and welcome to session 6 of my series on conscious self management, sort of improving mindfulness in your life or improving mindfulness living. Wonderful Saturday morning today. We had a great batch of rain somewhere between 4 and 7 o'clock this morning, and now the sun's come out and not a breath of wind here in Port Elizabeth. So it always amazes me how, no matter how much the rain we have and how much dark skies we have, the sun always comes out. So a lot of the things amongst this turbulent times we're living in are there's still a rhythm to nature. So I want to be thankful for that. Just while we're on that, I also want to just express gratitude to all of those that have been sharing my videos, those that are commenting on my posts, those that are sharing some of my talks with their friends. Some of you guys are even holding these, I don't know what they call them when they watch together, watch parties. So I want to say thank you to that. Hi, Bob's, saying how's it out of Scotland there. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been sharing that, and anyone that has recommended me on my page. I really appreciate it. The word of mouth, as I said, is a phenomenal tool, marketing tool. Nothing beats someone who shares by word of mouth. So today we're going to be covering a scientific approach to what we've been talking about in many of the other sessions. We've spoken about, hi Nadine, morning. So I want to just say that we've used the metaphor of the hurricane before. We've spoken about finding your center, finding your calm. This quote that I've got on front here, which says it might be necessary to stand on the outside if one is to see things clearly, kind of speaks to that. We've touched on finding your center, which is a place to rejuvenate and a place of calm that you can open up your problem-solving spectrum to be able to see better. But we also spoke about the word ascending, sort of rising above it if you have the helicopter view. So once you're above the hurricane, you also have a different perspective. So today we're going to talk a little bit around the scientific part of that. Hi, Carol. Thanks for joining. Today we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. And it's a fairly modern approach. Also came in after the year 2000, sort of tied in with positive psychology. There are many other therapeutic approaches which also work and use mindfulness as a tool. Certainly the one that I love and use a lot is acceptance and commitment therapy or coaching. So all of these use mindfulness. So mindfulness has really become a valuable tool in achieving a lot of change and helping people get up to their optimal functioning selves, which is a big part of what I like to do. So originally with cognitive behavior therapy, the whole idea was, discovering what thoughts you have and then challenging these thoughts, challenging these limiting beliefs. And if you thought you're a loser, you had to say, no, you can't say that. You've got to be saying you're a winner. Where mindfulness-based cognitive therapy has a very different approach. So today we're going to be talking a bit about that. So thank you. Thanks to anyone that that's joined us. Just to be aware that all those videos are on my Facebook page. Oh, just another quick mention. My Facebook page obviously is not just the videos. There's a lot of, every day I post anything between 10 and 20 motivational, inspirational, anything that I'm doing talks on or any thoughts that I've had gets posted on that page. So it's regularly updated. So please go and have a look there. And if you haven't liked the page yet, please like it, so that it can come up on your feed. All right, great. So let's just check in with my first slide. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking a little bit about left brain and right brain and sort of a little bit behind the science behind what I've been talking about, just to give it some sort of I want to call it a verification or credibility. So most different types of therapies or approaches or scientific approaches sort of see us as with these two types of people. So many people might be dominant left brain, other people would be dominant right brain. Now, on the left brain people, those would be more analytical. They tend to be more verbal. They think more in terms of verbal, very scientific, very in control, like order, like structure. And then your right-hand people that are more right-hand dominant are more aesthetic, and they're more into relationships and art and creativity and learning and freedom of expression. So there are, as I said, there's almost like two sides to it. Some people have a balance between their left hand and right brains. Other people are more left brain or right brain dominant. And there's no right or wrong version of the kind of person you are. We need both of these. So we're going to talk a little bit about this today. The left side is also very task oriented. So when I work with companies and when I'm working with teams, you'll see some parts in the team are very task oriented, and the right hand brain people are more people orientated. And there sometimes can be a lot of conflict between these two groups of people in your team. That being said, like I said, there's no right or wrong. You need both sides, and ideally you'd want both sides in your team, not just one side. Otherwise, your group is going to have a lot of one-sided thinking, so to speak. So let's move on here. So this Peter guy, in his quote, he says it might be necessary to stand on the outside if one wants to see things clearly. This is another great slide that speaks to where we've been trying to go with all these presentations that I've been having. So on the left-hand side of your brain, those people that are more left brain oriented use reasonable mind or rational mind. Sometimes we call it rational mind, where we're thinking about past experiences, using research, logic, statistics. Then on the right-hand side brain is all the emotional side, the anxiety, the feelings, the sadness, stress. But in between these two, the subset of these two sides of the brain, these two different minds that we have in us, is what we call wise mind. And this wise mind is an approach of, we're going to touch on this in the slide just now, which with a big, I want to say fancy psychology word called metacognitive awareness. But a simple way of looking at it is to call it wise mind. So when we use wise mind, we take the best of both of these reasonable minds and emotional minds and use it to reflect on and make a conscious decision, not based just on reason and not based just on emotions, but we're looking at it from a wise mind. Sometimes people would like to say that when we use reasonable or emotional mind, we're often using either for the past or the future, whereas wise mind is making decisions based on the present with the information that you have at hand. So today, like I said, we're talking about mindfulness-based cognitive behavior therapy. So what we normally do is we learn to identify these thoughts that we're having. And I think what we've been doing throughout the series and the series before that is trying to get you to become more conscious, to be able to sit down, be quiet, check in with your thoughts, check in with your feelings, check in with your body. But it's impossible to do this if we are rushing around and we're busy. And one of those slides we spoke to it a while ago was we spoke about zombie state, the zombification of the species and mindlessness and being busy, 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 or worry, worry, worry. Then we can never check into ourselves and go, what am I thinking about right now? What's really going down inside of me? So mindfulness-based cognitive therapy assists one to become calmer, that we can check in with us, because we cannot change our thinking patterns if they become habitual, because we're on autopilot. So we want to be able to move back or pull backwards so that we can start monitoring our thoughts and helping ourselves to change them. So if we look at these mental modes again, most psychological theories or scientific theories will even say there's a number of subsystems within our bodies or within our minds, and sensory would be one of them. We've spoken about the sensory, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, where we use our eyes, ears, nose, taste, touch, and smell. And but there's another way we can look at it, is a right and left brain as a sub-modality, let's say, within our systems. Now the left brain would be your scientific kind of person. We call this sometimes cool cognition, okay? Very ordered, very calm, very rational, very scientific, and having a sense of self, okay? Then the other side, we can also call it the right brain, we can call it hot cognition, okay? And though the one might sound better, I'm again just reaffirming that neither of these sides are better than the other side. With the hot cognition side, that side is very emotional and more concerned with relationships. Okay, so one very much people-oriented, the other side very task-oriented. And I've just a thought that's flashed into my mind now is, I was working with a manager once who was extremely left brain, and his staff were extremely right brain, needing a lot of positive strokes and a lot of affirmation. They had a huge task to finish, which they did. They managed to get through a number of job cards, and the supervisor went to this boss and said, "We've done it, we finally did it." And so he looked at her and said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" "To thank you for doing your jobs." And that's the idea of this cool cognition, someone who's so disconnected from his right side of the brain that he couldn't understand that they wanted a positive affirmation or confirmation of how hard they had worked. So this is the difference between the two. So we're going to get to a stage where wise mind would be able to look at both of these sides. So let's move on to the next slide. We're going to sort of break this down into just the cool cognition side and then the hot cognition side. So in the hot cognition, or on the emotional side, the right-hand side of the brain, these people are when we say goal-orientated, it's not to say left brain people are not goal-orientated, but goal orientation to the degree that because they are ruled by their emotions, and everything comes to them in pictures and flashes. We spoke about this yesterday, I think it was, with the distorted thinking. So just in little one-word chirps, and straight away they're pushed into action by their thoughts, okay? And goal orientation refers to need to do something about a situation. And that doing something about a situation could mean that they move towards it in order to change the situation, or they could run away from it. So it's a very active space that person's in, and they're quite, I don't want to say highly strung, but they're certainly constantly moving either towards or away from situations, governed by their thoughts, which obviously are impacting their emotions. And this can be very problematic, especially, like it says, it can be very dangerous when your assessments are distorted. So, which is why we covered this session now on distorted thinking, because if you think it's okay, someone's peed you off, and now you start swearing at them, or your child is irritated, and you start going off into a rage and smack them, or do whatever you're going to do because you're out of control, this is problematic because you haven't been able to stop and just assess the situation calmly. And like I said, remember, there's this when you're stressed, tired, or sick. Those are times that this ability to have insight, or your conscious ability to be able to check yourself, goes very low. So your coping resources are not able to deal with things like that. And the doing mode person is quick off the trigger. So in Afrikaans, they say, as jy gou op jou perdjie is, then you have to be quite careful about this doing mode. You're probably a doing mode person, or very much a right-brained person. And again, I talk about the autistic, those kind of persons, the aesthetic persons. So both this side and the other side are going to have problems. So we're going to go across to the other one now. So this is the doing mode. The other person is the being mode. The being mode makes these people sound as though they're sort of calm and relaxed, but there's a lot going on in their brains. They are still quite active mentally, but they are a lot calmer and more rational and less prone to panic. Okay, so less goal-oriented. Sometimes the people that are in being mode are very slow to take decisions. I run a course called True Colors, and in the True Colors, this kind of person would be the green person. Now, the green person is very slow to make decisions. They need all the facts in their whatever the facts are before they make their decision. So sometimes it takes a long time for them to make a decision because they're too calm, and sometimes you need the emotional person to get them moving. So it's not quite correct to say they're not goal-oriented. It's just that they don't move very quickly. So they don't quickly jump to solve something or the other way. They need a lot. And they like structure and order. So they're not big ones for change. They might be able to have a vision of change, but for them it's very, very difficult to accept change, whereas the other person can accept change and will just maneuver around it. Now, the difficult part about being in the being mode, is like we spoke about it in one of the slides as well earlier, in one of the other sessions, was if you were in a field looking at a flower and walking slowly through a field, or if you're walking across a road and there was a truck barreling down at you, you certainly don't want to be in being mode. That's when you need to be in the doing mode and actually get the hell out of the way. So both are necessary, and that's extremely important to understand. But the idea here is that you become conscious, or you become aware of, are you more left brain or are you more right brain? Are you more the emotional side or are you more the logical side? Doing versus being. Okay. Then we get to this slide, which speaks a bit about the metacognitive awareness. Like I said, so metacognitive is beyond, and cognitive is your thoughts, and awareness is being aware, which we've discussed. So metacognitive is beyond your thinking and beyond your awareness. So this is the space where we want to get to. This is the fancy word that I've been trying to reach regarding using the hurricane metaphor, the helicopter metaphor, which is about rising above it, and even the observer. We've used this word, the observer, trying to help you become the observer or become more detached. So this metacognitive awareness, or wise mind, like we showed you earlier on in the slide presentation, is a place that you can step back to be able to switch between doing and being, because there's a time when we need to be in the being mode, and there's a time when we need to be in the doing mode. But we cannot do that if we're in either of those modes. So it's important to be able to become more of an observer. And when we are able to switch between modes, when we're able to step back into our wise minds, we can call it detachment, you can call it disidentification, or non-identification. So there's a number of ways to refer it. The word observer works very well for me, so I like to use the word observer. So you step back into this observer role, and the next slide is going to help you to understand it a little bit better. And we did the chess metaphor, if you recall, from a previous presentation. That also helps you to understand this observer role of stepping back and having your thoughts here and being able to choose which thoughts you want to run with. Okay. And again, this whole session, everything is about becoming more self-aware of your thoughts and feelings. So we've all heard of this, the serenity prayer. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I've just spoken about the being mode, the doing mode, and then the metacognitive awareness or observer mode. So this speaks exactly to those three states. God grant me the serenity would be your being mode. To accept the things I cannot change, and courage to change the things I can. That's the doing mode. The courage to change the things I can. And remember, I said this to someone else I was coaching about 2 days ago. I said it's extremely important. This person needs to make a big change in their life. And I said there's 3 things that person needs to do to make that change within her team. She needs to have the courage to do it. She needs to have commitment. And she needs to have conviction, which speaks to personal belief and self-belief. And then lastly, the wisdom to know the difference. And that wisdom to know the difference is wise mind, is the observer, is the metacognitive awareness. That's stepping one step back from the bigger scheme of things. Into our case study for today. Sarah and Marco were a couple. They were sitting at a cafe, having a cup of coffee. And she happened to notice that he was looking at another woman in the shop and staring at her with deep in thought. And then she thought to herself, the cheating jerk. But then she remembered some of the training she'd done, because they'd both done a meditation course in mindfulness. And before she said something to him like, how dare you be looking at the woman? What are you doing looking at her? Do you love her more than me? She took a pause, as we said yesterday, stopped, stepped back, took a pause. And then she asked him if he thought the other girl was attractive before accusing him of being a cheating jerk. And he reflected immediately, no, not at all, that he found Sarah way more attractive than her, but that this woman had reminded him of someone he was with at university, and he was wondering whether she was with him at university. And it's a simple example or a case study of how quickly we can shoot our mouths off before we've stepped back and assumed something. Yesterday we spoke about jumping to conclusions, and he was merely just thinking about this woman as he wasn't sure if she had been in his class or not at varsity. All right, so thank you for joining me this morning. Again, check in with my page. Please say how's it if you've watched the video, so I know that you've been there. Thank you for viewing. We'll see you again on Monday, and just watch out for the posts for Monday 9 o'clock. Have a great weekend, and life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's all about learning to dance in the rain. This also speaks to those 2 things. You've got waiting for the storm to pass will be the being mode. Dancing in the rain would be the doing mode, and learning to dance in the rain would be the wise mind, deciding what you want to do. So thanks a stack for joining me. As I said again, have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.